Thank you all for attending this meeting today. We're hoping that you're able to gain some valuable information. We will have an update from Judge Huckabee on the Somerville ERAF Sub-Regional Planning Commission, the Chapter 391, and about the next steps as an intervener on the proposed transmission lines. We'll have a few different presentations, and then we'll have some time to work. We have many volunteers that are here to help you be able to be prepared to use your voice in this fight. That has to be the key part of all of this, your voice. We're going to cover many details during this time. We plan to record the meeting and post the meeting so it can be referenced by those not in attendance or for a refresher in case it's needed. The link to the video will be posted on our Facebook page. And if you are not on our emailing list, we ask you to email us at no765kv@gmail.com. That email is monitored and we try our best to get you what we can. Before I turn the microphone over to Judge Huckabee, I would like to thank you all for stepping up to this challenge. We are showing people far more than we can even imagine what can happen when people work together. We have faced many challenges as volunteers in trying to do what we can to help you make sure your voice is heard. But in those challenges, we have been able to see time and time again that we're doing exactly what we're supposed to be doing. If you are here as a volunteer to help others, please stand up. Stand up. Y'all are all hiding. These are the people that are in your corner helping you. Together we can make an impact as a team, and for that I'm eternally thankful. We have a list of interveners that will be passed around. I'm not sure where it's at. It's probably right here. And so we ask that you go through that list and highlight your name on the list to verify that you're there and that you're here in this room. Those are only the list of interveners is released on Fridays. And so that's the list of interveners that was through March 20th. So it doesn't count if you followed the 21st, 22nd, or that 23rd day. Yeah. So if you're not on there, please write your name on the very back page and highlight it. If you need a pen, we have some. And so we do that because that list has a total of 786 interveners. That's huge. We're gonna have some people that are gonna talk about that in just a little bit. The new list that's gonna have the people from the 21st, 22nd, 30th, 23rd won't come out until next Friday. And so that's gonna put us behind a lot if there's people that need to be able to be helped. So if you're on there, please highlight so that way we know who is there and who needs to help. Our volunteers, so we were at 786. Our volunteers processed on the last day, the 23rd, over 200 forms of intervener forms and commoner forms. It's hard to tell the difference once they get uploaded, and we had several different groups of volunteers that were doing that. And so we're looking at close to 1,000 people from our area that have spoken up, which I think ought to be commended because it's really fantastic. And I think it's making a big difference. Judge Huckabee will speak about that. Joanna is not here today, but she was in Austin this week, and people are noticing that we're in opposition to this. There's some other things that we'll talk about that'll show that also. And so please take time to highlight that. It's going to take a while for it to get through because it's 25 pages to go through. It is in alphabetical order, so it should help, but we do have that. I do need to make sure that it's known that we are only a group of volunteers. We're not giving you any legal advice. We're only bringing you resources to advocate for yourself, your business, your community. At this time, I would like to have Judge Huckabee come and give us an update and share his thoughts. Let's see what he says. So please help us welcome ERAF County Judge Brandon Huckabee.
not very good at standing still. So I'll pick this up. It's great to see you all this morning. I appreciate you coming out on a Saturday at 10 o'clock. I know there's a lot of different things. This morning I spoke at the Republican, are having their precinct and county convention. So that's where quite a few people are that are working at that. So it's good to see you all here. That's actually where Joanna is. So I get to talk to her this morning. As far as an update on the 391, we continue to meet every Tuesday at 2 p.m. We have continued to work on our policy with a lot of information and things that you have brought to us. We've added to that policy. I was just talking to Eric. I'm going to try to work with his help because he's a lot better at some of this than me on the technology part, but get some a one pager of information out about what we're doing as a policy position as we work through this. The 391 allows us by state law to coordinate with different government entities. We have sent out demand letters for meetings to the U.S. Fish and Wildlife, to the Texas Department of Texas Parks and Wildlife. A lot of acronyms in my name or in my mind right now, and Encore. And so we've got those meetings set up so that we can coordinate with them and demand that if they are going to bring projects like this that come through our region, which is Somerville and Grad County, that they have to comply with what the citizens and we want them to comply with. And quite frankly, the compliance is we don't want these anywhere in Erad County. There's no route that will work in Erad County. Not one is better than the other one. And that goes with a lot of ranges. It goes with our communication system for first responders. It touches on environmental impacts. It touches on historical impacts. It touches on wells. I recently, Middle Trinity filed as an intervener. Their filing on there, if you go look at that, is really, really good. And we're able to use a lot of the information they gave us, Patrick and his team on that, along with like I said, the other work that's been done by so many people in here. We're going to continue to work on that. We have not got a response back from any of those groups yet. So we gave them a deadline. That deadline hits this week to get back with us on the proposed dates. Once we get those proposed dates, we will blast it out, and we need you to show up to those meetings. There will be a public participation part with public comment, but it won't be a free-for-all where we just stand up there and attack. But we need you there in numbers to show that we're united and we're supported. And I think that's one of the things about today and until the 8th that is so important. And Eric will talk about some numbers I know coming up, but there is no line, and there's 3 of these lines being proposed in the state of Texas. You can kind of go a southern route, a middle route, and we're considered the northern route. There is nobody that is more active and more involved than our route, and we need to stay that way. And it helps. It helped with the comments. It helps with intervening. But the intervening, quite frankly, doesn't matter anything if you don't get this testimony in and your statement of positions, and that they matter to what the Public Utility Code looks for. I want to say that again. It matters, and some of the stuff he's going to talk about, that you go into detail on those things that they have to look at, that are written in law, that they're supposed to, those commissioners are supposed to look at. None of us want to look at these things. But aesthetics and stuff like that aren't going to be the key to your arguments that you're putting into this testimony that he's putting in there. So nobody knows your land like you do. And so we really need your help to finish this and keep running through the finish line, along with our commission that's going to ask the hard questions, get them on record in public, answering certain things that quite frankly, I think will be contradictory to other things that happen, but we want it on public record so then we can utilize that against this process as well. So there is good momentum. I think your legislators are starting to wake up to this. The Senate had interim charges just put out, and it actually mentioned by name 765 transmission lines. So Lieutenant Governor Patrick has a committee that is looking at that and what that's going to do. They still don't go into session until next year. This is supposed to be finished by August the 18th. So while that is great, and I think the political pressure will help with the commissioners, that's not a saving grace for what we've got to do. So continue to put the pressure on. To me, that just shows that they're paying attention a little bit, but don't let it be lip service for committees to meet, because they can't meet and enact anything or vote on anything until next year, because we're in the interim. So, but there is good news. Joanna had some really good meetings. She was actually at the governor's office on Friday. So they are paying attention, and it's because of you and the great work that you're doing. I can't say enough about the volunteers that have helped with this. I would be remiss if I didn't thank my chief of staff, Jocelyn Perez, who I think a lot of y'all have met, and continue to come to our office. We're here to help through this process, help you make sure things are filed. Again, we're not experts in it, but we love this community. We care about this community. And again, there is no route that is okay for us in Erath County, and that's what we're going to continue to fight for. So I'm available. I'll be here. If you have any questions at the end, please feel free to come up and ask. But I thank you, and I just say we need to continue to go through this process. You're here, so you're obviously invested. But if you look through that packet of names coming around, and you see people that maybe aren't here that you know intervened, make sure we get in touch with them so that they intervene. Because again, it doesn't matter if you intervened if you don't file your testimony to what your land's important to you and the detailed things that are on there. So really, from the bottom of my heart, thank you. And we're here to answer any questions and help you through this process as we go along.
Thank you, Judge, and your various team members and the 391 Commission for all you're doing on our behalf. Next, I would like to introduce Eric Duff. Eric has been working behind the scenes in the emails and the filings. He will be presenting about where we are in the fight and what is next. Eric has created an informational presentation and an extensive list of resources with you to help you with your testimony. Please welcome Eric Duff.
Hey everybody, I'm Eric Duff. Let me see if I can get this stuff on the screen. I sure hope so. Nobody wants to listen to me. There we go. Don't worry about reading that real quick. I'm a full transparency person, so I want you all to know who I am. I'm just a regular person, just like you all, who bought some land, built a house, built a shop, put up a bunch of fence, and then got this letter in the mail last April, May. And so really took me by surprise. A little irony for you on this. We lived in New Jersey for a while. We moved from Texas to New Jersey for 8-9 years. State regulation there is pretty heavy duty. It takes a year to do things here in Texas that you can do in about 2 hours. And when we moved, we were like, oh man, this is going to be great, going back to where things make sense government-wise. And here we are today. So, it is what it is. But my property's potentially impacted by all of this. And what we're going to talk about today is really taking care of you. There's a lot of, why is this happening? What is the governor going to do? What is the PUC going to do? All these political aspects of things. And there's this huge process, intervene first. Now we need to do testimony. Today's focused on testimony, and that's your opportunity to tell your story. So today is all about learning how to protect you and your property that could be impacted by this. As you heard from the judge, and you've probably seen and heard a lot of this elsewhere, there's a lot of community and county representation here for us. We're being represented really well. There are 5 transmission line projects, 765 kilovolt ones. 2 of them are ahead of us in the process. One of them has about 420 filings in their docket. They were 3 months ahead of us in the process. So they've already intervened and given testimony. Another one is about 2 months ahead of us. They have 450 filings in their docket. They did testimony and had their hearing last week. 450 filings. So we haven't even given testimony yet, and we have 3,754 filings in our docket. You know what I think that what that represents to me, and I'll put it this way. So my 5 favorite movies are Rocky, Rudy, Hoosiers, Miracle, the hockey movie, and Secretariat. Other than sports movies, what do all those things have in common? That's exactly right. Underdogs. People walked up to them and told them they were nuts. They can't do this. It'll never happen. You're crazy. Just leave it alone. And I can't tell you how many times I've walked up to somebody and who knows nothing about this, like a friend in Fort Worth or something. Tell them about what's going on, and they're like, well, you can't do that. Encore is going to do what they want to do, this and that. That may or may not be true, but we're a bunch of underdogs who have shown up big, big, big. Joanna, like the judge said, was doing her thing this week, and it's getting noticed. So great job. Today's going to be about how we do things together to get testimony done. Unfortunately, to get to this spot, if most of you are interveners, you only had to fill out a little form and sign it. Maybe you uploaded it yourself. Maybe a volunteer did it for you. Probably took you 5 minutes max. This is different. This is testimony now. It's going to take some research. It's going to take some time. And what I'm going to share today is a little bit of info about who's involved right now, where we are in the process, but then arm you and provide you with a lot of data and context so you know where to go to refute things. Because I think the data and the information you have is going to be really important. So up here on the screen, this is really just a disclaimer saying, I don't make any claim to the accuracy of all this, even though I'm really confident it's accurate. But all this stuff came from what ended up being about 400 charts and 2,500 pieces of paper documents, right? And so trying to collate all that into one thing, I had a machine do it. I'm not a machine. So, but disclaimer's there. So let's move on here and talk about who's involved right now. Encore is involved. Encore is kind of like us right now. Encore filed an application, and they're defending their application. We're defending our point of view against that application. Kind of even there, right? So Encore's still in this as the entity who applied for the certificate of necessity, convenience and necessity, something like that, CCN. The PUC is involved. They're our biggest customer right now because they will make the decision. Well, actually, so the State Office of Administrative Hearings is our biggest customer right now because that is who we're testifying to. We'll talk about that in just a second. And then obviously interveners, right? That's it. That's who we need to be aware of and focused on right now. Everything else regarding testimony is just kind of noise, right? And so there's a lot of cool interveners out there. There's a lot of big ones. And there's a lot of people. Judge Huckabee has intervened on behalf of Erath County. The Trinity Water District has intervened. A lot of counties have intervened. When you see how many counties are in this thing, you'll be shocked, I think. So let's go next. Oh yeah, we'll email this document to you so you don't have to feverishly scribble stuff down. And if you can't read it, I'm sorry. I tried to make it as big as I could up there. But the schedule, here we go. Our most important thing is April 8th. Thankfully, somebody who knows how to do it. This is good. This is great. April 8th is our deadline as interveners. That's when we have to have our testimony submitted by. Submitted testimony either gets mailed to the PUC or uploaded to the website. I highly recommend you upload it because it has an electronic trail. We'll talk about how you can file your testimony after you're finished. On April 13th, that's the last deadline for anybody to oppose anything, object to anything. This is really like a lawyer thing or a big attorney, big entity thing. I doubt we as individuals are going to be doing much of that. So there's not much to do here, but there is a party locally that yesterday filed a request for a route adequacy hearing. We'll talk about how you can find that and how cool that is in a second. April 16th to 23rd, that's rebuttals of everything that's happened so far, objections, replies, all that. It's just a date that the administrative law judge has set. So as individuals filing their own testimony, we have nothing to do here. I'm just calling it out because if you're reading the schedule, you might ask why I didn't include it here. So April 8th is really important to us. And then April 30th is really important to us too, right? So on April 8th, we file testimony. Between April 8th and April 30th, every party in the case, almost everybody on the planet, because all of this is public. If my Nana up in Maine knew how to use a computer, she could go look at everyone's testimony, right? So, but this is when you'll know if somebody wants to cross-examine you or ask you for additional information about your testimony. Not likely, but it's possible. And then May 4th through the 8th, sometime that week, maybe the entire week, is going to be the actual hearing. This is when the trial part of this takes place. It's going to be a courtroom atmosphere. Theoretically, we can all go down there if we want to. I'm probably going to watch it on Zoom. It's available to everybody. But it really is like a court for the most part. It's not a public rally place. It's not a place to protest the lines or anything like that. It is literally specifically about who's testified to what and what else do you want to ask, right? People get cross-examined, things like that. So not much to do, but you want to stay aware of what's happening.
Sorry.
I'm grateful for help any way I can get it. After the hearing, I think there's not much for us to do as individuals, really. We stay informed on what's coming on the docket and what's been done. May 18th is a big day because that's when final briefs are due. Usually in these final briefs, lawyers and stuff do, a lot of filings on what they want to do for who they're representing, etc. The administrative law judge will also put out a final brief, and oftentimes that final brief will give us an idea of, based on all the regulations and laws that the administrative law judge has to take into account, based on all the testimony and rebuttal and objections, etc. They will ultimately make a recommendation to the Public Utility Commission commissioners to make their final decision. So we may know that by May 18th, it may be a little after, but usually in the other case that's already gone through this step, the administrative law judge in their brief said, this is the route I recommend based on all of the legal stuff we just did. And then ultimately, August 18th is the date, no later than that the PUC commissioners have to make their final decision on this. So these things could shift a couple of days. There's a motion out there right now by someone to extend the testimony deadline by a whopping 24 hours. So let's just plan on having testimony done by the 7th so that we have all day on the 8th to do your filing and get it updated. All right, let's move on, please. And we will talk next about all the routes and links and counties in our zone here, right? So there are 130 potential routes for this project. Now I'm calling this out because it's important that we understand the lingo and the terminology as we testify and read things from Encore and others, right? So I think what we're all used to is C1, C2, C3, A1, A2, A3, and those are real things. But for example, C2 can be used in up to 11 different routes. For an example, we'll go into more detail on that, but there's a ton of counties here. I think there's 13 or 16 total counties. And I provided the number of potential routes out of those 130 routes that cross each county. And the interesting thing here, I don't know if you can see down here at the bottom, Howard County, 130 routes out of 130 possible routes are in Howard County. Howard County is where this thing that ends up at the Solstice station, Solstice electric station, right? If you scroll down a little bit, you'll see Somervell County. Somervell County, 130 out of 130 possible routes in Somervell County. That's where it starts. This whole thing is connecting into Comanche Peak out in Glenrose. Other interesting thing, if you see Erath right there, Erath County has 130 of 130 possible routes running through it somewhere, right? And so I'm not sure everybody was aware of that, about the potential impact to our county, right? Everything that Encore has planned, no matter what route they select, is going to start in Somerville, is going to end in Howard County, but it also happens that every single one of them runs through Erath. So it kind of makes sense when you look at a map, right? This thing is running east to west. I mean, we're kind of right west of Somerville County, so in a lot of ways. So directionally, it makes sense, but I wanted to make everybody aware of it. And I mean, you can see the other counties that are impacted. I mean, Hood County has a lot, Mitchell County has a lot, Easton County has a lot. So any of them are a lot, but again, you'll get all this data. And then here are the routes, the number of links that you're used to seeing, right? So out of those 130 routes that are potential in Erath County, we'll focus on that. It uses a combination of all of these links. Not all 130 routes use every link, but within those 130 routes that could go through Erath County, it's made up of those. Again, it would never be all of them, but that's where we're at. So let me, and right now, I think you guys are all aware, but proposed route 552 is the actual best meets route that Encore has referenced in their application, right? And so I'll show you in a minute how you can see what linked that impacts, right? So let's go down to the next page, please. Okay, we're not going to spend a lot of time here, but every route is represented on this page, every link. A route is a number. Best meets route right now is route 552. But it's made up of links, A1, A2, A3, C1, C2, C3, etc. Right? So every one of you are on one of these links, maybe more than one, depending on how much property you have, right? This is how many potential routes are on your link. So that kind of tells you, out of all the routes that PUC could choose, that's how many are under consideration for my link, right? So I know a lot of people in here are on C3. There's 41 out of 130 possible routes that are on C3, for example, right? A1, that's the one that's coming straight out of Comanche Peak, right? One of them. So all potential routes have A1 included, right? So again, illustrated for right now. We'll talk more about it after we all get done talking. We can sit down together and chat a little bit if there are specific questions. But when you see the data presented to you this way, it's much more, you're never going to hear that the approved route is C3, right? Or one of the potential routes is C2. You're never going to hear that terminology in this process. You're going to hear, well, maybe an alternate route we could consider is Route 971, right? 971 includes A1, A2, F19, whatever those are. So the way Encore has communicated with you is a tract number, and you have to go find, you can go on a cool interactive map and find your property, and then all you see is C2 or C3 or A1, whatever. Without diving into the data, it's very difficult for you to actually know which route you're on or what potential routes you're on, right? And each one of those routes is what goes through how many homes are on this, how many mobile irrigation pivots are on it, how close is it to an airport, how many endangered species live here. Those studies and that information is not available based on C3 or C1. It's available based on route number 4, right? And so we have that data that you can go now look at and see what's going on in your area. By the way, how many people in here have land with a mobile irrigation system on it? So there's 4 or 5 hands. In all of these routes, Encore says there's a total maximum of 2. So that might be a good data point. Whether it's accurate or not, I don't know. But if Encore says in their data that this route I'm potentially impacted by this route, and this route has 2 mobile irrigation pivots per the Encore data, and you have 2 on your own land, there might be a discrepancy in that for your testimony, right? That's how we use the data we have available to us to be able to state our case against the current application from Encore, if that makes any sense. So let's keep on going here. I want to get to the testimony part because that's really what's most important. I'm talking about this right now to give you an idea of the terminology and the data you're going to have to look at to be able to find the information you need. Okay, what's next with testimony? All right, I'm not going to read this whole page, but you need to think about your testimony as a virtual courtroom, basically. We have a testimony template out there that you can use. It has a couple of recommended questions on it. It feels a little awkward to do the testimony because you're asking yourself a question and you're answering your own question, right, in the testimony, and it feels odd, but that is the preferred way based on how we all understand it. Again, none of us are experts in this, none of us have been through it, but that is a preferred and logical way to work through it. That the SOA, the administrative law judge presiding over this, seems to prefer. At least that's what we've seen and heard. So that's what we're recommending. So it's a legal proceeding. When you file this testimony, it is the same as you walking into some kind of real criminal trial, sitting on the witness stand, raising your hand, and taking the oath. Submitting this testimony is exactly like that. You're saying everything you're saying is considered under oath. It's got to be truthful, accurate, and based on your own knowledge. So it's got to be written by you. We can explain the process, but it's got to be your words. And we're not lawyers. Again, just a quick disclaimer. We're not lawyers, and we're not providing legal advice on how you should do this. We're providing recommended templates and things based on experience we've seen and heard from others who have gone through this. So really important here, who are you speaking to? You are speaking to an administrative law judge that works for the State Office of Administrative Hearings, SOA. So when you hear SOA, it's the administrative law judge or panel of judges, depending on how they set it up, that will preside over this case. So as you think about writing your testimony, who are you not talking to? You are not talking to Encore. You are not talking to anybody else public, your neighbor. You're not on a bar stool having a conversation about this. You're not bad-mouthing. You're not good-mouthing. You're talking to a judge about why you are making the argument that you're making throughout your testimony. Also, you're not talking to a politician. So how you might frame something in a letter to the governor may not be the right way to frame it to a judge, right? Up to you. But you are talking to a judge, as a judge will be the one that reviews your testimony. for legal consideration of your argument. Encore will see it, we'll all see it if we want to go look at it, but the audience is the judge. So testifying effectively, being specific and fact-based, compare routes clearly as you're able to, and focus on real and measurable impacts. Try to avoid emotional-only arguments. How you feel and how this has impacted you emotionally, mentally, physically is a real thing. If it's important to you, you should mention it. How you feel about somebody coming and potentially taking your property through eminent domain, if you're passionate about that, it should be part of your testimony. But your testimony can't be based on your opinion or your feeling only. In order for it to be effective, you can literally say whatever you want. Your testimony can be a one-liner. How do you feel about this project? Answer, I think it sucks. File your testimony. You can do that if you want to. But to be effective, emotion plus fact is really powerful. So we've been told. Scroll down just a bit. I have a quick example here. Oh, no, I don't. The most effective testimony explains, uses facts and comparisons, why one route is worse or better than another. That's essentially the argument we are making. It's a little uncomfortable because at the testimony phase, we are actually arguing route against route, usually, versus just stop this project altogether, right? It makes me tremendously uncomfortable to say, well, go put this on my neighbor somewhere just so it doesn't bother me, right? I hate that. It's kind of a fact of the matter. How you want to frame all this is up to you, but that is typically the argument we see in most testimony. This route is not as good as this route, and here are the factual reasons why. Very important, there was a docket on this case early on that's separate from the docket now. It was a public comment docket. Also, when Encore was here in June, early June last year, they had you fill out all these forms, had us fill out all these forms and send them in with your comments and all that stuff. And when you filed an intervener form, or maybe you filed an intervener and a comment form at some point, and you wrote things down in that comment section, or you attached a letter to it or something like that. Anything that you have sent in so far that you've written down beyond your name, address, email, and stuff for the intervener form, anything you've written down that you want the judge to consider, do not assume that the judge is going to see it, right? So if you have something to say if you want what you have previously said and sent in some way to be part of the record, included in your testimony, 100%. Honestly, that other docket, I don't know what happened to any of that material. We can still go look at it, but it's not part of this record, right? So anything you previously said, the takeaway is make it part of your testimony. Okay, let's keep going. All right, nuts and bolts here. These are the required legal factors that the administrative law judge and ultimately the PUC is required to take into account in this proceeding. The need for the line, community values is important for us. We have a lot of residential land. We have a ton of ag land out here too, right? We have a lot of hay, a lot of livestock, a lot of crop. And then effects on the character and development patterns of the area, right? So a lot of what is in the 391 policy that the judge and team have been working so hard on, that committee, it's represented there. Environmental integrity. This is something that I know a lot of you all are passionate about. The different streams and rivers we have around here, the endangered species, the wildlife. A lot of us are very passionate about how we've kept our land wildlife friendly. Parks and recreational areas, how close are these things to parks and other places where we spend time, right? Walking trails, hiking trails, places where we ride four-wheelers or whatever it is you do outside. Historical and aesthetic values. I know that there are a lot of cemeteries we're talking about now, and and different historical things that may not be present in the Encore application. Very important for you to mention if it's something that you know about. Cost. Of course, the judge and the PUC have to consider how much these lines are going to cost. By the way, for all 130 routes, we can see how much each one of them costs, and they're all in the billions. Routing efficiency and use of existing corridors. So how efficient is the route? How much does it leverage what's already there instead of just swapping a whole new path? Impact on residences and habitable structures. There's a definition of what a habitable structure is, and that is someone lives in it regularly or could live in it regularly. I'm researching right now. I mean, my shop, kind of where I live during the day when I need a break from the house, and it's got heat and AC, full plumbing, all that. I wonder if that's a habitable structure, right? If it is, there's two on my property, not just one. So I'm researching that right now, for example. Scroll up just a tad. All right, maybe the most important part of this page, we'll talk about what is not a legal factor that the PUC and the administrative law judge has to consider. This doesn't mean they don't consider them, it's just not part of the legal statute. Property value loss. As I was working with the volunteers, I think number one complaint was this is going to just destroy the value of my property. Right? That was a resounding thing across almost everyone that has said a word about this. That is not listed in the code. Property value loss is addressed separately through the condemnation process or the easement acquisition process, right? Which the PUC or the administrative law judge is not involved in. That is up to the utility who is granted authority based on this application to build the line. So in this case, Encore, right? So property value loss and that reparation will come through that process. And just quick side note here. I got this question a lot last week, and I've driven by the Encore facility down here on Lingleville a few times. They're ramping up with some of their equipment back there. No one's coming to build a power line right now. No one's going to show up at your fence, cut a chain, roll a crane in there, and start putting the tower up. Not happening. We got to get through August 18th before anyone can even consider asking permission to come onto your property. So no one needs to worry about that right now. But property value loss by itself, again, is not a consideration. Property value loss as it relates to other facts may really be a big factor. General opposition. A lot of people said, I just don't want it here on my land. I literally saw intervener forms that had black marker written across it, and all it says, I don't want this on my property. I'm sure this person is very emotional about this, and it's very important to this person that this not come on their property. But that is not an argument that is going to carry a lot of legal weight with the administrative law judge. Emotional or speculative harm, right? If you think this has physical, emotional, or any kind of harm, and you're speculating on that, right? So I've read this about EMF. Encore will have a witness that will refute that with EMF, right? So whatever we say about how this may harm us physically or emotionally, we need to have some facts that back that up. Otherwise, it's just an opinion, right? Facts where possible. If you don't have a fact, I'm not saying don't write it down about any of this. Whatever you want to write down is great. But if you have a fact that you can tie it to or reference, even better. Anytime there's a preference without a comparison, right? So I prefer that this not come on Route 1 on my property. You should go on Route 2, right? If all I say is don't come on Route 1, it kind of, the administrative law judge may look at me and say, well, this guy is just taking his ball and going home. He does not have an opinion other than don't come on my route, right? And so, again, totally okay. And this is where you kind of get into, well, if I say that I support another route and my friend Joe lives on that route, I feel bad, right? So that's something we're all gonna have to deal with and handle on our own way, but the more you can provide alternatives, if you look at some of the intervention from other people and some of the testimony from other people, there's good examples on how people handle this. And we'll talk about how you can leverage other people's what they've found and said to your benefit. And then purely individual, without broader context. So if you say this is going to cost me a lot of money, we need to tie it back to something else. Is it because your residence is impacted negatively? You have a business that's impacted negatively? The $500,000 in cattle you just bought last year is going to be impacted negatively? There's got to be something with it other than this is going to cost me money. If you have something that you can tie it to, that's great, right? So something like that. I'm making all this up, but all right. So I have a small, very generic example of this is probably the initial reaction from every property owner that's ever gotten one of these letters. This was mine. Oh, this is going to ruin my life, my property, right? In testimony, I could effectively say that better by saying this route does something to our property, doing something to my business, doing something to my land or personal use of the property, affecting the community values under the statute, right? So this is an example of how to turn that emotion into something that a judge applying rules and facts and laws might consider a little more broad. So let's go to the next one. And okay, I'm not going to go over this. I'm going because we'll send this out, and I can even give you the link while you're here today if you want me to. But some of us have lawyers, some of us don't have lawyers. If you don't, we can pretty much do the same thing that lawyers do to a certain extent. So your strategy, aligning with other people around you. Sometimes lawyers like to build a little coalition of people in the same area. You can do the same thing. If you have neighbors, talk to your neighbors about what they're concerned about. And if they're concerned about the old oak tree burning down because of the possible electric fire, then you might be concerned about that too. And if all 6 of you write the same thing in your testimony, the same way, the judge might see a pattern. Oh, these 6 people are all concerned about the same thing. Maybe that's a big deal, right? So talk to people around you, leverage what you can find that other people are saying. But again, how does it impact you? What's the fact to back it up? And then the legal factor, right? That's the most powerful thing. The administrative law judge, if they read that, they don't have to search for anything. They can see this is the impact. This is where it fits into how I should think about it as a judge. So let's go ahead and move on to the next thing. Okay, I'm not going to open any of these files right now, but I want to explain what they are. If you're going to be here after we all get done talking, then we can look at them and talk about them. But this is where you can find facts and info. So there's our link to our testimony template. There's the 391 commission that the judge is president of. Middle Trinity's information that they filed. Route data with Encore files. That's a big spreadsheet, but you all have access to it. And inside the spreadsheet, it's very clear. It's the list of all 130 potential routes, how many houses are on it, how much the estimated cost is, how many miles of pasture land, rangeland, existing corridors, all those things that they have to consider. It's all there. And then we have some county data there, the map, and then all the rest of that, scroll down just a little bit. All the rest of these links are filings that are inside the docket. This is really your treasure trove of information. You got to go look for it or get somebody to help you go look for it. But this is where Encore's application is, right? So included in here, Encore's engineers have already testified. it's in here. There's 4 of them, and we're linked there. So scroll down just a little bit. Encore's application, I think I said it a while ago, is about 400 charts and 2,000 pages.
It's a different.
Keep going down. Keep going down. Keep going down. Second page. Next page.
Eric, if I got it last night, it's not updated this morning.
Oh yeah, it's updated.
This was handed.
Yeah,
That first sheet's not enough. This one.
So what you can see here, out of the 2,000 pages that Encore filed, it's really a list of different files. So how many times have somebody asked, did Encore do an environmental study? They did. It's linked in here. You can find it in here. Find everything you want to know about it, all their charts, all their data. Did they look at airports? Yes, they did. It's linked here. Did they get the right permission from ERCOT to even start this process? Yes, they did. It's linked here, right? So everything that Encore was required to provide in their application is now, it's easy for you to find. So if you don't have to read 2,000 pages and 400 charts anymore. If you just want to look at the environmental study, you can click on it and see it. It by itself is really long, but you can see it. So all this is going to be available to you. I'm sure you'll have a lot of questions about what it means, but I've been up here a minute talking now. And I know we have some other folks and we want to have some working time and Q&A time too. So I'm going to pause what I've got going and hand it back to Emily. And we'll talk a lot more about this. I think we're going to have something sometime next Tuesday and then the following Monday here. And then as Emily mentioned, we have our email address that all questions will be.
Thank you, Eric. A lot of information. I know it's a lot of information, but the thing is the work that Eric has done, it puts it all in one document. And so this is a Google Drive folder. So when we email it to you, what Ms. Vanessa was just saying, she's like, this document I have printed right here. We didn't print a bunch of them because it's changing so often. Like whenever we have somebody, this morning when Eric and I were talking, I told them like they need to be able to reference the 391 policy that committee put in. And he's like, okay, so he just goes over there, pulls that policy and adds it. And so she's like, this isn't in there. And that's why. It's because it is changing. We're going to try our best to be able to have that to where people can access it in print, because a lot of this stuff, if you don't have access to a computer, they have tried to set you up for failure. And we do not want you to fail. So if there's specific things that you need help with, you just need to come see Eric or I and get on our list so that we can target those. We are going to have these forms available. The forms that he just talked about, this document and the other stuff, it's going to be at the courthouse on Monday after lunch. So that way you can pick up the paper copies. We just have to have some time to process it. But we also need to know that that's your intention, is to come pick it up, because the courthouse is a busy place, and we don't want to waste a lot of funds on printing stuff that's going to end up going in the trash. So if you need help with that, we are going to help you. We just need to make sure that we have it available to you. So thank you, Eric, for that. Our next presentation is going to be from Christine Watfield. Christine is a dear friend of mine. I affectionately refer to her as the keeper of the earth. She leads the LSD PTO outdoor learning program here and is bringing us an array of information so that we have some facts to recall when we're preparing our testimony. So if everyone will welcome Christine Watfield.
Thanks, you guys, for the opportunity to speak to you all. Emily first asked me to speak, and I said, no. No, I'm not going to in front of a bunch of people and telling them about these things. And then I went home and thought about it. These people really need to know this kind of stuff if they don't know. So begrudgingly, yes, I'll be here. I'll speak in front of you. So it's going to be informal, but here we go. I am speaking as a naturalist and as a biologist who spent 30 years working in the watersheds around Texas. So we'll show you some facts about that. I'm gonna talk about ecosystem integrity, water, wildlife, and land ethics of Texas owners. This is not just a line that they're putting in, it's permanent ecological scar that divides our functioning habitat. I've heard somewhere in the ballpark of 77,000 acres is what it's gonna encompass, and that's a lot of land to talk about. Switching, next. Well, why does this matter? Why do we care? Well, Texas is already losing our natural and native land at a rapid pace. People moving into Texas, everybody wants to come here. Our intact ecosystems are increasingly rare due to just people moving in and the other factors that happen. And these infrastructure decisions, they have permanent consequences. We're not just talking about something that's going to affect us. This is going to go down through generations. So it's not just about power line, it's about long-term impacts for the land, water, and the biodiversity among multiple counties. Now, there are several ecological regions affected. Texas is broken up into ecoregions, and our region, this area right here, is the Texas Cross Timbers. Then we have the Edwards Plateau transition zone that's going to be affected, and then also the rolling plains, and the rolling plains encompasses 3 or 4, I think, ecoregions. Go to the next one. Okay, this map just shows you the ecoregions that we were talking about. You can see Cross Timbers, the East Texas Central Plains, the Edwards Plateau, the southwestern tablelands, and even Texas Blackland Prairies. So it's going to cut just a swath right through the middle of what we're talking about, and that's several ecoregions that are each unique in the properties that they present. Okay. Here we've got the oak savannas and the cross timbers. It's a perfect example of what you're used to seeing on your land, and your land as you see it now, not with big transition lines going through it. Next, we've got our native prairie grasslands, which are getting few and far between. I think more than 95% of them are gone at this point, just due to agriculture and people doing different things on their property, farming. Okay, next. Habitat fragmentation, this is a big one. These permanent cleared corridors create edge effects and they disrupt wildlife movement. And one big area that's going to be a problem is Dinosaur-Longshore State Park. You're dealing with cross timbers there and Edwards Plateau ecotone habitat, which is already limited in size, but it is very biologically rich. The edge effects that this is going to cause allow for invasive species encroachment, and that creates a great imbalance. You're going to have your ash junipers, your mesquite, and your low succession plants coming in. I think when you have a bare patch in your yard, what's the first thing that comes in that bare patch? Stickers, grass burrs, weeds. Well, that's the kind of thing that this is going to cause whenever you create this huge corridor. The first succession plants are going to be the great ones that are coming back. It also allows for barriers for species movement, especially our reptiles, our amphibians, and our small mammals. These transition corridors don't just pass through land, they divide it. And these species rely on this continuous habitat. Those are the ones that are especially affected. Wildlife. Okay. It's just a picture of a red-tailed hawk and some animals on the line. But these transmission lines are very well documented hazards. They are collision risks for migratory birds along the Central Flyway. This area where they're planning on putting this is the migratory bird flyway, our major pathway that millions of birds use each year to go towards to complete their breeding cycles. Now, we're placing this hazard right in their migratory pathway, and the transmission lines present a known and preventable hazard. So there's going to be millions of wildlife affected through this. Okay, next. So as we said, bird collisions with lines, destruction of this major migratory pathway, and a lot of habitat loss for our native species. Okay, Next. And here we see a federally endangered golden cheek warbler. Now, those are positively identified in the eastern section of where, like Somerville County, where they're going to put the lines. I don't know how many sightings are going further west than that. And then we have a regular eastern fox squirrel. You see eastern fox squirrels every day, all day. I mean, that's not a big deal to anybody. But these eastern fox squirrels depend on continuous woodland habitat. These fragmentation things they're very sensitive creatures to the fragmentation. So in the future, if we have these, fox squirrels may not be an everyday thing that you see every day. Okay. Next, we have two other Texas icons. We've got the scissor-tailed flycatcher. They nest in open country and they're vulnerable to disturbance and to line collisions. Then we've got our regular eastern and western meadowlarks. This is another indicator species that we use to see if your prairie or your land is healthy. Okay, next. Talking about this central flyway that all birds use for their migration. We've got Mississippi kites, red-tailed hawks, and then we know that the great horned owl also uses these transmission structures, and they have collision and electrocution risk. So there's a number, I can't even tell you how many species are listed. Like the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, if you look at their testimony, so many, hundreds of birds that are affected. Okay, and then if we go to the next, we've got this guy. This guy is a Texas icon. Everybody has a story. If you're my age or older, everybody has a story about playing with these guys when you were younger. Putting one in your pocket, taking it home, so look what I've got. Well, Texas Parks and Wildlife and a number of zoos in the areas have done all sorts of research on reintroducing them, and have been successful reintroducing them in some of the counties that are going to be affected by this. Texas Parks and Wildlife reports and research priorities. Reintroduction focus has generally been in Central Texas, Edwards Plateau, and the Rolling Plains and across Timbers ecoregions. And they actually have been successful in reintroducing some. But there are probably close to 10 zoos right now working on this project alone, reintroducing them into Texas. Now, the effects that these lines would have will not be good on them. So that's another thing that you can consider. Next. We've got the monarch butterfly and all the other pollinators that use this region during their migration. Their migrations will be disrupted and breeding cycles disrupted through these transmission lines. Next. Okay, native prairie and soil loss. Texas has already lost most of its native prairie, as I said, greater than 95%. And the construction that they're going to do compacts the soil, and this causes loss of water infiltration and native plant recovery, and it disturbs areas that often are converted to weedy monocultures, like I was talking about before, like the first succession plants come back, and you'll end up with all first succession plants and not a healthy ecosystem at that point. So we are trading irreplaceable native ground for infrastructure that could be routed elsewhere. And once this native ground is disturbed at this scale, it rarely returns to original ecological condition. Thanks. You can see this is not empty land. In order of just considering wildlife, there are several Texas icons that we would like to see for the rest of our generations and for our children's generations and on and on and on. That's migration corridor, our native species habitat, and our declining ecosystems. Okay, now we'll switch to water. Water, why do we care what it's doing to the water? Well, increased erosion during construction is going to cause a lot of sediment runoff into our creeks and rivers. It's also going to cause long-term maintenance and disturbance as they are maintaining these lines, and impacts rivers like the Biloxi River and the Colorado River tributaries. This is protected and recreational land that's being degraded. Areas around state parks and natural areas considered special ways. So in this, we have the Dinosaur Valley State Park. It's a major educational site for its tracks, its geology, and its ecology. Visual and noise intrusion reduces our visitor experience, our educational value, and you just can't claim to protect a natural landmark while you're industrializing its whole viewshed. So healthy watersheds depend on stable soils and intact vegetation. Both are disrupted by these large transmission lines. This is a very old map of the watersheds in Texas, but it shows you the two watersheds, the main watersheds that are going to be affected. Number 12 right there is the Brazos River watershed, and then number 14 is the Colorado River Basin. So both of these are in the map, go across the map that will be affected. Next. The next thing we need to talk about is, I don't know how many of you know about sediment pollution in rivers. Think of the first picture as a picture of exactly what the Biloxi River in Glen Rose looks like right now. It is the cleanest by far river that we have in this area, and that's what it looks like on a given day. Now, if you take, I think there's 3, maybe 4 routes where it's going to cross the Biloxi River, and the construction from this is going to put a bunch of sediment pollution into the river. Now, not only the fact that that doesn't look good, it looks awful compared to the clear, but you have to consider the ecosystem that is living in that clear creek. You have to consider underneath all those rocks, underneath the sediment in there is a whole ecosystem based of benthic macroinvertebrates, the little critters, the little bugs, the little water bugs that all live in there, and what the sediment will do to them. Clogs their gills, shuts them down. Anyway, they will be the base of the food chain. Go on up next to the minnows, and it clogs their gills. So you can see where we're going with this. You end up with the whole food chain disrupted by this sediment pollution. Next. And some of the species that live in this area that we'll be concerned about are the turtles, one of them Texas river cooter, leopard frog species, and native minnows in the Biloxi and the Colorado tributaries. There's a fathead minnow right there on the left. And all of those we would like to continue seeing, and all of those are impacted by these things we talked about, plus the sediment pollution. So our cumulative impact is we're going to add to existing land fragmentation. We're going to encourage further infrastructure expansion. We're going to have long-term ecological decline. So even if one of these lines seems minor, it's setting precedent for future infrastructure. It's adding to existing fragmentation and regional ecological stress. Texas already faces rapid land conversion. This issue is not just one project, it's the cumulative unraveling of our Texas landscapes. Okay, public land and natural heritage. This degrades experience on our near protected areas. It impacts our tourism, our recreation, and our education, and it includes areas near Dinosaur Valley State Park. There are better alternatives. We can co-locate with existing corridors. We can avoid these sensitive habitats, and we can use more strategic routing. We're definitely not I'm not in opposition to energy infrastructure. I mean, I'm pretty soft. I like mine grid to be up, but we are supporting for smarter siting that we can avoid all unnecessary harm to our ecosystems. Texas stewardship ethic. Okay. Texans are proud of their land. They're proud of what they have. They're proud of the animals that they see on their land, and they want to protect it. So we want to protect our land, water, and wildlife. We can do this by making science-based decisions, and we can preserve our natural heritage. Landowners in Texas, like I said, we have huge respect for our native ecosystems. We also have a responsibility to leave behind to future generations. We need to follow science-based management to do this. And Texas landowners are obligated to avoid unnecessary harm when there are other alternatives that exist, other routes. This project, as proposed in this location, creates long-term impacts that should be reduced or avoided. Next. So key takeaways are there are going to be permanent ecological impacts if these lines go in through here. There are going to be sensitive regions affected, and they are avoidable using better routing where there's not so much ecological sensitivity. And then the next one, this is kind of just to help people who are your interveners, how you can structure your testimony so that a judge would listen and see. First, establish your connection to the land. Like, I own this land. This is my connection to it. And then name your specific ecological concern. I'm concerned about the fathead minnows that live in my creeks by my house or in my tanks. And then explain your mechanism of harm, how the line is going to hurt your fathead minnows. We'll say it's going to affect my fish population by the sediment pollution that's going to be in the creeks. It's going to stop in the food chain. And then state the long-term consequences, population decline due to the altered food chain. And then request your specific action. Like, what would you propose as a solution? So you would reroute, maybe request more study. You would have them denied altogether, or you would have them mitigated and clean up after they're done to bring your land back to what it was before they brought in the line. And I think that's just the map, and I believe that's it. And I'll be around if you have questions on specific areas of ecological systems or anything.
Thank you, Christine. We're very thankful for everything you've done. If y'all have questions, she is going to be available after this. Our last presentation is a topic that's essential for all of us, and that's water. In this area, we're blessed to have the Middle Trinity Groundwater Conservation District. They were established to conserve, preserve, and protect the quality and quantity of groundwater resources for citizens in the Bosque, Comanche, Coryell, and Erath counties. They have filed as an intervener in this fight to serve their mission in groundwater preservation. They have filed as an intervener in this fight to serve their mission. And so in that, we've been able to gain some great information off of that is included in the 391's document, the county's, the subcommission's 391 document. One of our fantastic volunteers, Bonnie Terrell, is back there at that table. She went to hide, so I wouldn't pull her up here. She was able to go by their office and learn about the different public resources that they have available. So she can show you how to use the public resources they have to learn more information about your wells. Because one of the main things, there's documented wells, there's undocumented wells, there's abandoned wells, there's all kinds of things. Well, in that, any of those that are an open part into the aquifer, they're at risk of contaminating the water for all of us. And so that one of the things that that Middle Trinity includes in their document is the fact that can jeopardize, the construction can jeopardize. They included a whole lot of different things in there of the different ways that your water, they feel that your water could be jeopardized. So please take the time to look over Middle Trinity's document. If you have questions about wells, what they have recorded, what they don't have recorded, go see Bonnie because she has those resources to do that. And also, thank you, Bonnie, for that information and for what you've done to support this fight. The Terrell sisters have served as volunteers and even have one of their nieces and daughter and niece that has been doing all the data entry for us. And so we are very thankful for all they've done. We would also like to thank the Terrells for the banners that are located in Steveville. If you saw those banners up, that was the family that has done that. So I hope that you've all been able to gain some more knowledge to be able to use your voice. to defend what you hold dear. We have people that are advocating for their homes, their businesses, the environmental integrity of our area, our community values, the cemeteries, and many other things. We don't get the ultimate say in anything other than the testimony we submit. There's a challenge ahead of us with the testimony. There's no doubt about that. The other part that there's no doubt about is they want us to fail. I don't know about you, but I take that as a challenge too. I know that our volunteer team is committed to doing all that we can so that you are able to have your voice heard. We've created a checklist. It's also going to be emailed to you. It'll be printed. There's several copies laying around of 2 different options. So after you get your testimony template done and you can get that printed out, if you can't get it printed out, then you need to email us. But once you get that done, the testimony template is going to be available electronically with Eric's presentation. So once you have that testimony done, you can upload that testimony onto the VUC's website yourself, or you can drop off that signed testimony at the 24-hour drop box at the Don Jones Justice Center on the corner. It's right across from the courthouse. It's on the corner of College Street and Graham Street in Stephenville. And then one of our volunteers will get that scanned in, and then we'll get it uploaded. When it's uploaded, when your email is included on that, you will get an email receipt that it's been submitted. So if you need paper copies of the templates, please come see me so we can get you added to a list. It's going to be a challenge. If you don't have the access to a computer or someone that can help you type, we need to know, because we need to make sure that we have a really good plan to get that testimony submitted. So we do have a few of these records that are going to be printed at the courthouse, and they'll be there by after lunch on Monday. If you feel like someone else needs to hear this presentation, we're going to do the same thing, very similar, on Tuesday night. We're gonna continue. If you would like to go back and gather information and then come back with questions, we'll be here at 6:30 on Tuesday night to discuss this again. By then, everything is moving so fast. There's no telling what new things we're going to have come Tuesday that needs to be included, or it might be a roadblock for you. You get it uncovered, and you can come back and say, "Hey, I was able to find this," and we'll get that shared with everyone else. This is literally the most team effort thing I have ever seen in my life, and it is fantastic. We are also going to have a meeting on Monday, April 6th, which is the day after Easter. We kind of got some delay with everybody's got Easter plans and different things going on. But that Monday after that meeting is going to be a final steps meeting. So that's going to be your hard deadline. Our hard deadline is that Wednesday, April 8th. So if you're going to need help with anything, where we can send things electronically, or you need to deliver things to us, all of those things, please bring them. If there's something you need to deliver to us and you can't get to the courthouse or anything like that, you have questions first, bring it to the next meeting. If you have a question, you can sit there and email. Eric has been monitoring that email. He's a wealth of knowledge, as you saw today. And so he's been doing fantastic at that. But I need you to know, if you need our help, we're going to have a deadline on Tuesday, April 7th, to be our last day for our team to be able to help you. To meet the March 23rd deadline, that deadline last Monday, we had numerous volunteers, or this Monday, we had numerous volunteers work as fast as they could to process forms. We had over 100 forms submitted in one day, and that's when we only were taking forms for half a day. Everybody's like, "Oh, I'll just wait till the deadline," or, they were late finding out. And so we have a little bit of time, but we can't slow up. We have to go ahead and get that stuff done and get it submitted, because for us to file 100 forms, I think Eric said they had it down to like 3 minutes a form, which isn't too bad, except that was only one form with your information on it. Now it's a complete packet of stuff that we have to get signed in. We have to get, scanned in, make sure that it's all correct. because we don't want to be a part of what's causing it to fail. Like, our team needs some time to work. And so that deadline is going to have to be on April 7th, so that we can process the forms. I ask that out of respect for our volunteers and for yourself, to have all requests for assistance, submitted by, Tuesday, April 7th. I would like to thank you all, for taking the time to complete your testimony and doing this next steps. We know it's not going to be easy, but it's going to be worth it. We're looking to continue to make it known that we don't want these in Erath County. And we can't do that without you doing your part. They literally, if you do not submit your testimony, your intervener goes right out. It's not, doesn't have any weight. But the other thing I want you to know is there may be people that didn't meet the intervener deadline, but they have an opinion about this. We can still upload comments. There's still comment forms available. So if you don't like it and somebody wants to do their public comments about it, please keep adding public comments, because those are making a difference. If you look, 3,700 things against this, that's huge. And so if you have somebody that has a voice that's willing to say that and is willing to advocate, they did not shut off comment forms. They shut off intervener forms. And so we have to keep doing that. We do have some time here to work, so there's different volunteers around. If you have questions, Miss Lonnie's there, Christine is here, Eric is over there, Judge Huckabee is still here. Please just network with your neighbors, and do your part. So I'd just like to thank you all for being here, and let's do it. Let's get to work.
Really quickly, if you guys did not sign this paper with your name and email address, payment link, come find me.
Yes, please sign in and get your email. Make sure your email is on our list. We need to verify all of those because some are not. We're getting returned emails. Do it.
Not receiving the email.
Yeah, if you're not receiving an email, please make sure we have your email address.